I'd like to welcome everyone to the August 1st, 2024 briefing. This is actually for our August 15th regular meeting. So this is the second briefing for August 15th, and we're off next week because we are hosting here in Winston-Salem, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners meeting. Today we have one discussion item, and we have the City King is here. Mayor Rick McGraw is here, and I think maybe Scott's also here too. Good. Why don't you guys, come on up.
Thank you very much. I'm Brad Friesen. I'm Rennie Pitt, and I represent the City of King, and I'm here with Scott Roberson, Fire Chief for the City of King, and Rick McGraw. And we are asking for the county's consent for the city to purchase 1.5 acres in Forsyth County. It's at the corner of Doral Drive and Spanhour Mill Road for the City of King to construct a fire station. I can tell you a little bit more about the property. It's directly across Doral Drive from the Reynolds plant. There is an area, there's some agricultural behind the particular parcel, and there are also some houses near it and also some vacant lots. Chief would be able to fill you in on the benefits and the city's plans for the station.
Good.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Excuse me.
Thank you for having us. Just some quick history and then demographics about the property location. Fire Department in King has been in existence since 1955 and 2000. We merged as a nonprofit into a municipal city department. And as far back as my records that I can find, we have been protecting the customers and citizens of Forsyth County since at least 1969 in that area. The City of King Fire District encompasses roughly 7 square miles, 24.8 road miles. That includes the City of King, Village of Tobacco, and the unincorporated areas of Forsyth County. The nighttime population is roughly 1,600 citizens, and that's the 2020 census. And I would estimate it doubles probably just in that area alone in the daytime from the Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And that doesn't include the commerce traffic through US 52 as well. Notable commercial properties are obviously your new multi-use agriculture center that we're excited that's underway, the R.J. Reynolds Manufacturing Facility, Forsyth Tech's Northwest Campus, Crest Tobacco, Millpack, and Trim USA. The property that is proposed, I spoke with Nick Smith with City County Zoning, and the property is zoned currently that it will accept a fire station. The benefit would be an increase in response time and a reduction in insurance premiums for those citizens. The geographic size of our district, which our overall district is roughly 35 square miles. We have currently 1 fire station. Looking at national consensus standards and working with the department or the Office of State Fire Marshal, our district would benefit from 3 geographically placed fire stations, and the location that we're looking at has been reviewed by the Office of State Fire Marshal and is in that geographic area to provide, reduce our response time, which is roughly 8 minutes, and I would call that on a good traffic day to get down Spanhour Mill Road to those areas. But it would reduce that response time as well. We have areas in that the homeowners are paying the maximum amount in insurance premiums due to our current location. If you're over 5 miles from road miles from a fire station, but within 6 miles, you pay the max premium insurance. The other citizens of our district, including Forsyth, City of King, Village of Tobacco, the unincorporated areas of Stokes and Forsyth, they're paying an insurance premium at a property protection class of 3 currently, so it's drastic savings in insurance premiums for those citizens. There are approximately 521 parcels that would be affected if this were granted, and 98 of those parcels fall outside of that 5-mile insurance area that I was speaking of. We have spoken to our partners at Forsyth County Emergency Services, and they are in support of this, and this has been in their long strategic. I work for County Fire for several years, and that was talked about even when I worked here at County Fire. We've also talked to our partners at Old Richmond Fire Department. They support that, as it will increase our response time for automatic and mutual aid to Old Richmond and Rural Hall, as well as we've spoken with the village administrator in Tobacco, and they see it as a benefit for the village citizens that are inside the King Fire District. And so that's a quick, brief synopsis, and I'll be glad to answer any questions y'all may have during this.
Well, I got a couple.
Sure.
First, I have looked at the picture of the fire district, and it is incredibly on the southern border of your fire district. And I do appreciate the data you provided, because that answered a lot of
Okay.
questions. 7 square miles out of your 35, looking at about a good 20% of the fire district there, and a lot of folks. It just struck me as a little far further south. But you have had a review by the Office of the State Fire Marshal, and
Yes, sir.
they thought that looks like a good place, good coverage, good everything. And that will support, would be the first response to, I take it, RJ Reynolds Tobacco there.
Yes, sir.
Because you'd be right there
Yes,
across the
sir.
street. I know exactly where the corner is and that. You've answered the question, I think, about location, which is good. The second question I have, though, is also about your financing part. How do you all see that happening?
So, finally, we have been, I grew up in the King Fire. My dad, my grandfather were volunteers there. I was literally raised in that fire department. I'm blessed to be the fire chief there, But we have been striving and working towards this for years. So we have been setting money aside as part of our budget process for a number of years now, to help fund the purchase of land first, because we have to have somewhere to build a fire station before we can even do anything. So we've been preparing for along the way. So right now we have some money dedicated for land at this point in time.
Good. Wow. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
All righty. I'll turn the meeting over to our county manager to brief each of the agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, Commissioner, staff, and guests. Agenda item number 1 and 2 are public hearings. The first one is a zoning petition of Renaissance Childcare from LOL to GOL. And then there's an associated ordinance amending the Forsyth County zoning ordinance and official zoning map and approval of special use district, no site plan permit. And then the second item is a public hearing on a text amendment proposed by Planning and Development Services staff. Our planning director, Chris Murphy, will brief both items.
Good afternoon. I can go over each of those items. I can give you a synopsis. I can go through a full presentation. I'll defer to the board. As the county manager did allude to, the zoning case is a change from LOL to GOL to add the use childcare drop-in. And it is consistent with the plan, and it was recommended for approval. Under the UDO text amendment, UDO CC 26, is to add, to modify several sections to make it easier to do daycares within Forsyth County. It's been an identified need in our comp plan. As I alluded to last week, there was actually an article in the Business Journal last week talking about the need for childcare. So that text amendment does simplify our process and our standards to hopefully make it easier for folks to do that. Like I said, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. If you want a detailed presentation, I can do that, but that's kind of a quick synopsis. I don't remember any questions last week.
Any questions for Chris? I'm good. I remember the presentation last week. Any other questions for Chris? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is a special resolution approving legislative goals and submission of such goals to the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners for consideration at its Legislative Goals Conference. Our County Attorney Gordon Watkins will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Board. I have given you each a hard copy of the legislative goals. It's the same as what was provided last week, except Commissioner Wilson is jumping right in as commissioner, and number 7 at the top of the second page is one that he suggested. So I'll briefly go over them. Please stop me or ask a question at any time. And if there's some you don't like, let me know, and we can adjust this list. So the first goals, the first 7 are North Carolina goals for the North Carolina General Assembly. And I'm sorry, I should have started off by saying, as you know, the North Carolina General Assembly has a biennium, 2-year process where they set the main budget in the first year, the long session, which is the odd year, and then the short session, they refine the budget. So the long session will be beginning in 2025. And so before that, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners holds a legislative goals conference just before the beginning of the odd year. That'll take place in November of 2024. You can suggest goals for them that will be discussed and voted upon at that conference. And so the deadline for that is August 23rd. It's a very early deadline, so that's why I'm before you today. So the first proposed North Carolina goal is regarding the anti-spiking statute, which has affected Forsyth County. And so what it says is support legislation to form a study committee appointing representatives of counties, cities, and the treasurer's office to make recommendations regarding the calculation of the Elgers contribution-based benefit cap in order to prevent local governments from being penalized for paying competitive salaries. What's been happening because of low unemployment and high inflation is the way the treasurer's office calculates what they call spiking is really affecting a lot of employees who were just receiving market-based rates. And so this is a goal would be to look at that again. And if you're interested, I have about a 15-minute presentation, which I will not do today, but if you're ever interested in that, I do have that, which I can share with you, which goes into more detail about that.
Can I just interrupt you?
Yes.
Editorial, I think school boards, they're also subject to the salary cap issues. And I think we ought to include them because they got the same interest in that. In fact, litigated the issue back nearly 10 years ago when the law was first passed. And the districts that litigated actually did win only to the extent in timing. It said, yeah, you didn't get enough notice. And basically that law of the capping, the spiking issue, been around 10 years. It's just now a lot of salaries are catching up to where it's more costly, and that's kind of getting people's attention, and that probably merits at least some review at the state level too. But I'd include adding school boards, county, city school boards, and the treasurer's office. And I would stop that sentence after benefit cap, because if I'm in the legislature, I'm going to say, well, we're not preventing you from paying competitive salaries. You can pay all you want to, but basically under our retirement system actuarial stuff, this is the way it's going to be. And by the way, we told you about it 10 years ago. So I sort of think that we just stop at benefits cap and not hammer that in that regard. But add school boards, stop the sentence at cap. After cap.
We could do that. The school board's not part of Elgers, so that would be a broader goal. And
then you'd have some reinforcement from the teachers and employees.
We can certainly do that. The last phrase was the kind of explaining why we're doing this, but if you don't want that, I could certainly leave that out. Okay, the next one is came from the tax office, and that's support legislation to provide counties with the option to advertise required tax notices electronically on county-maintained websites rather than publishing such notices in newspapers in order to reduce the fees that taxpayers have to pay for the publication of such notices. So when the county proceeds with the tax lien, the taxpayers have to reimburse the county for those costs. So that's the explanation for that one. The third one is a response to a session law which just passed in the past couple weeks, and that is to support legislation to repeal the requirement in Session Law 2024-45 requiring counties to post physical notices of tax liens on taxpayers' properties, which represents a major burden in staff time and expense for counties and offers no benefit to citizens who already receive multiple forms of notice of tax liens. For Forsyth County, this new statute will require the county to physically post an advertisement on 6,500 properties, which right now they're mailed, they're published, there are many different forms of notice, but this would actually have us post it on there. So that's that one. The rest are ones we've had in the past. Number 4 is support legislation providing flexibility to align K-12 and community college calendars. The 5th one is support legislation that promotes education attainment and career and college readiness by increasing funding for apprenticeship and internship programs, trade certification, and workforce development programs. And the 6th one is provide funding to support additional innovations waiver slots so as to increase the number of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities receiving the necessary support and services to live in the least restrictive community-based setting and to shorten the wait list for North Carolina Innovations waiver services. And finally, for the state goals on the next page, support legislation to enforce and implement the rulings in the Leandro case in order to fulfill the state's constitutional duty to provide all children with the opportunity to receive a sound basic education.
A comment I'd probably make before you leave the state group is that 4th one on the calendar flexibility. I mean, I suspect that's been a legislative item for now we're almost 20 years.
It has.
About 20 years. And I probably think that, obviously, this is going to our, legislative goals conference and that kind of stuff, but it's almost like we're sort of done with that. I'm not so sure asking the 21st time is going to make any difference, but if the final list that goes to the legislature will obviously be culled down and be smaller and all those kind of things, but that's one that's probably not worth fooling with anymore.
Is there a consensus that we remove that one?
Well, it'll probably end up being a legislative goal anyway by the time it gets to the conference, and other counties vote on it. But it is true, it's been there for probably about 20 years.
It has been 20, because I remember when the original legislation was passed. It's about 2002, 2003.
I'm okay with leaving it in, just who knows? They might accidentally approve it.
As you're aware, the local school system has decided to go ahead and do that, regardless of the law.
A lot of systems have.
And probably the only other thing I thought of, I appreciate the Leandro part. I know the Leandro decision's been litigated lots. Been in the state Supreme Court now several times. And I think the last decision, the latest one, after we had a decision like at the end of one calendar year, and the next calendar year we had new Chief Justices appointed, and it was reversed immediately. It seems like the latest, though, is that basically the courts have no authority over the legislature to mandate, how they spend their money. So I guess it's not implementing the latest rulings related to Leandro would be leave things alone. It's more about more support for education, and particularly teacher salaries. And I mean, we've seen all the signs across the state about teachers deserve to be paid more, and that makes us competitive for talent in this state, and the state really should get that focus part. I'm not so sure Leandro gets us at the last, will get us where we need to be, but I'm all for supporting the education part, and I'd love to support the provisions of that if it would ever happen.
I believe the case was reheard before the Supreme Court in February. I don't believe the final decision has come out yet.
Yeah, could we hear from Commissioner Wilson, please?
I'm very familiar with this series of decisions, and the chairman is absolutely correct. They're all over the park, and the more recent ones have not been as supportive as the original ones that were the brainchild of Judge Howard Manning, Superior Court judge since retired. But he made the initial ruling that there was a constitutional right for every child in this state to have a sound basic education. Those are his words, not mine. And there was an initial affirmance of that, and then I think it arose first out of Hope County, and then there became some dispute about evidentiary support for what some of this should have by way of benefit to the students in the classroom, and there was some targeting at that point, with regard to where all of the money assigned for education was actually going, and it has wormed its way up through the courts. There will not be, in my I predict there will not be a decision about the current case in the Supreme Court before the election in November, but sometime later in the year, we will receive that. I do recognize that Leandro is to a certain extent aspirational, and I think the chairman agrees with me in that regard, and I think everybody in this room wants the best for our children, but there are statistical studies even today that show that if a child is not in a kindergarten program by the age of 4, they'll be behind when they start regular grade school at the age of 6 or more. So I think the foundational principle of Leandro is a very good one that we should support. But I do concede that the rulings up to this point are a little bit unpredictable.
If I may comment, I think the gist of the goal at its heart is to support improved state funding for our public school system, and I think there's broad support for that. Commissioner Wilson's reference to the pre-K investment is a good example. That's one that I expect would be extremely difficult for the county to afford to pay the lion's share of, but the state has a nice, healthy surplus, and this would be a good way to invest part of it.
Maybe the wording of ruling, implement the rulings. Perhaps that's where it's kind of like the which ruling, where we look at the one prior to the most recent claim to the what, and
Perhaps.
I'm probably more in semantic. I want to support education too. Leandro sends the right kind of message.
Perhaps implement the intent in the Leandro case.
Yeah, I like that better. Implementing the intent.
Okay, so I'll work on some language with that and send that around to you. The federal goals, there's not as much time spent on the federal goals at the legislative conference, but they do still adopt those, and so I've chosen some that seem to align with the county's goals. The first one is support funding for behavioral health programs and services to address the opioid and substance abuse epidemic and support flexibility for counties to use funds for prevention and recovery. The second one is support measures to reduce the number of people with mental illness in county jails and legislation that would allow individuals in custody to continue receiving Medicaid and other federal health benefits until they are convicted, sentenced, and incarcerated. And the final one is oppose unfunded mandates and changes in eligibility for federal programs that shift cost to counties.
I think the most important one for the federal goals are the second one that has been a federal goal for many years, and that would be a huge advantage for us.
We do now have obviously expanded Medicaid coverage.
Right.
And so that has real effect on us now. Before, there weren't as many people in jail who already came in with Medicaid, but now there should be quite a few. And so when they lose that coverage before conviction, but just when they go into jail, that is very expensive for the county.
Right.
Okay, I'll work on the number 7 and the first one too, with the North Carolina goals. Is any other discussion?
Just a request, without asking for the 15-minute presentation, could you provide a written summary of the backgrounder on that? I want to make sure I understand the details.
Sure. And I'll show you. I have a nice picture of the American volleyball team spiking over the Serbians. So, but I won't go into the whole presentation. So as the chairman indicated, the law took effect January 1st, 2015.
I'm sorry, I meant written. I mean, my colleagues may be well familiar with this.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can get that to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 4, approval of our minutes for the meeting of July 25th, and I know our clerk's office is working on that, and that'll be sent out soon. Agenda item number 5 is a resolution authorizing submission of the fiscal year 24-25 Home and Community Care Block Grant County Funding Plan for older adults and authorizing execution of necessary documents to submit the plan for state approval. Our senior budget analyst, Kim Bussey, is here to brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This item is necessary to approve the fiscal year 25 Home and Community Care Block Grant Funding Plan for older adults to the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Aging and Adult Services. The funding plan attached in your documents should show the allocations between DSS, the Shepherd Center, Senior Financial Care or Financial Pathways, Senior Services, Support Systems of Forsyth County Transportation, and TransAid. As PTRC is the designated lead area agency on aging, once approved by the state, funds will flow directly to PTRC to be dispersed according to this funding plan, should it be approved by county commissioners. So I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have on this item.
Any questions for Kimberly? Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item number 6 is an amendment to the fiscal year 24-25 budget ordinance to appropriate $231,802 from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services for Agreement Addendum 719, the Bridge Access Program for COVID-19 vaccines. Our Assistant Health Director, Camilla Pleasance, will brief this item.
Good afternoon. This budget ordinance amendment appropriates $231,802 from NCDHHS to the Forsyth County Department of Public Health under the Bridge Access Program AA 719 for COVID vaccines. This money can be used to help provide access to COVID-19 vaccines for both uninsured and underinsured adults. Can I answer any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Camilla, you can go ahead and stay there since you have agenda item number 8. I'll come back to 7, and that's an agreement addendum 546 for the communicable disease pandemic recovery from DHHS in the amount of $746,644.
And this amendment appropriates $746,644 from NCDHHS to the Forsyth County Department of Public Health under AA 546, which is the communicable disease pandemic recovery. This money can be used to expand any essential public health services and to control communicable disease in Forsyth County.
Questions?
Any questions?
I maybe ask this one. Do you all get plans for the, I mean, this is just accepting the dollars that are basically could be spent pretty flexible spending opportunity there.
We are planning to use a portion of this to purchase COVID-19 vaccines for when the new updated shot comes out.
Thank you.
And I will say, a lot of these COVID dollars are hard to spend. It's very, very strict criteria, and so staff we will do our best to get all of these dollars out. But just so you all know, some of the requirements from the state on a lot of these agreement addendums related to COVID have been quite challenging.
It seems like her last sentence was, this one has very few strings on it. Read the last sentence you said. It was
the restrictions have decreased a little bit from year to year. So anything surrounding like disease control and prevention, we can use this for as well.
Thank you.
So the only thing I'd like to say to our county manager is that I'd like for you to be very creative in terms of using all of the resources. All right, thank you.
Understood. All right. I'm going back to agenda item number 7, which is an amendment to the fiscal year 25 budget ordinance to appropriate fund balance for the Family Justice Center security cameras. Kim Bussey from the budget office will brief this item.
Good afternoon again. This item is necessary to appropriate $16,900 in fund balance to the Family Justice Center for the completion of the approved 2023 PAYGO project for security cameras for the facility. Our MIS department has been working to obtain quotes and to do some research for the equipment needs on the project, but the equipment purchase was not able to be made by the end of the fiscal year 24, and as such, we need to appropriate these dollars back into the fiscal year 25 general fund budget. This item will do that, and it is my understanding that MIS is ready to proceed on this project as soon as this item is approved, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Thank you.
Agenda item number 9 is an amendment to the fiscal year 25 budget ordinance to appropriate $50,000 from DHHS for Agreement Addendum 121, which is ARPA TSF for Public Health Services. Our Department Business Manager from Public Health, Adam Pendlebury, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, this item appropriates $50,000 from NCDHHS. There are very, very few restrictions on this one at all. We plan on drawing down general salaries with this. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 10 is an amendment to the FY25 budget ordinance to appropriate $63,421 from DHHS for Agreement Addendum 403 for the WIC program. Our Assistant Health Director, Nicole Pretty, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The WIC program is receiving $63,420 from North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. That is due to an increase in participation rate in the program. So that money will be used to support WIC services, including breastfeeding services. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
All right, agenda items number 11 through 13 is Ms. Pretty's as well. Number 11 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with the Bradley Group to provide temporary employment services for grant-funded programs at the Forsyth County Department of Public Health.
The Department of Public Health is seeking to gain approval to enter into contract with the Bradley Group to provide temporary staffing to assist in the delivery of services for our minority diabetes prevention program as well as our WIC program. The total contract funds will not exceed $94,902, and all funds will be paid via reimbursement from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. Informal bids were obtained, and the Bradley Group was the lowest bidder.
Questions? Thank you.
Agenda item number 12 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Board of Education for comprehensive school public health nursing services for medically fragile and special needs children.
Yes, this interlocal agreement for the Department of Public Health is to provide additional school nurses to provide care to children with special medical needs at 5 of the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County school sites. The school district will pay the county up to $478,564.29 for these services.
Questions?
Yes, sir. Is this implementing part of our budget, or is this in addition to the budget that we had adopted?
This is this is included in our budget, I think.
Yes, the revenues from this contract were included in the FY25 budget. Because it is an interlocal agreement, it does require board approval.
I thought that might be the case. I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Agenda item number 13 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Hologic Sales and Service to provide use, maintenance, and support of laboratory equipment and purchase of reagents and laboratory supplies.
The Department of Public Health is seeking approval to enter into contract with Hologic Sales and Service to continue to provide equipment, support, and service for the Panther device used in the Public Health Laboratory for automated molecular testing. This is a sole source contract with a dollar amount not to exceed $425,000. And these funds are used for the Panther machine itself as well as the necessary supplies and reagents.
Questions? Thank you.
And I'm going to skip to 17 because that's Ms. Pretty's last item. And it's a resolution ratifying and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and Davidson County on behalf of their respective health departments for Forsyth County to provide lab testing to Davidson County.
Yes, this is a request to enter into interlocal agreement with Davidson County. This would be a continued agreement. Our public health laboratory does provide testing for some of their patients. Services would not exceed, or payment for these services would not exceed $16,000.
Questions? Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 14 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Medic Staffing Solutions to provide temporary employment services for clinical operations at the Forsyth County Department of Public Health. Our Assistant Health Director, Camilla Pleasance, is back to brief this item.
Hello again. This resolution would allow us to enter into an agreement with Medic Staffing Solutions to provide temporary physician assistant or nurse practitioners for the Forsyth County Department of Public Health. The clinics include STI, family planning, TB, immunization, and immunization clinics. The contractual amount is not to exceed $115,000. This contract was informally bid in October of 2023, and Medics was the lowest bidder and fulfilled the terms in the contract through fiscal year '24. Any questions?
Maybe the one question I have is just simply is there a point at which that we begin to wean ourselves away from basically contracting for additional workers, additional folks? I'm taking,
I think so. Once the newer providers that we have on staff are fully trained, we'll be able to move away, and then we have a new provider position that we are hiring for. So we'll be fully staffed at that point.
So okay, but if you're fully staffed, you don't need Med-Ex. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Correct.
Okay. So you're actually covering basically this is salary, probably for one person plus benefits plus the Med-Ex contract.
If I could just, Commissioners, Chairman, say a few words too. So some of this also is to have a fail-safe, because in the past when we've had staff vacancies, we had to then get a contract, and that caused a reduction in services. So some of it is for that reason. And also we have individuals, we have a part-time phlebotomist that Camila had mentioned, and a provider who's able to help us out. They used to be a full-time person, and they're able to come back a few hours a week to help us in our evening clinics.
So we're only using it when we need it. It's not all the time, but we have definitely had an issue in the past where we were down providers and had to close clinics, which is a big no-no. And so this is just to give us a backup during the year when we need to have services.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Agenda item number 15 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of COVID-19 vaccines from Moderna, Pfizer, and Novavax.
This resolution authorizes the purchase of COVID-19 vaccines to include Moderna, Pfizer, and Novavax for distribution to Forsyth County Department of Public Health. The Department of Public Health is requesting the purchase of $150,000 of vaccines from these manufacturers. This purchase is eligible for reimbursement under funding made available through North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, and that's under Agreement Addenda 546, the CD Pandemic Recovery.
Questions? Thank you.
Agenda item number 16 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of non-influenza vaccines from Sanofi Pasteur using the MCAP Infuse Group Purchasing Organization.
And this resolution allows the Forsyth County Department of Public Health to purchase non-influenza vaccines from Sanofi for use in the vaccine clinics. This purchase order is an amount not to exceed $215,000 and is being purchased through the MCAP Infuse Group Purchasing Agreement. And this purchase order would be for all vaccines purchased through Sanofi, excluding our seasonal flu vaccines.
Questions? Thank you.
Okay. We're now at agenda item number 18, which is a resolution ratifying and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and Guilford County for the Improving Community Outcomes for Maternal and Child Health Program. Our Assistant Health Director, Sharita Sutton, will brief this item.
Good afternoon. We are seeking approval to enter into this interlocal agreement between Guilford County and Forsyth County. Allows for the Forsyth County Department of Public Health to become a partner agency in Guilford's Improving Community Outcomes for Maternal and Child Health Program. The goal of the program is to implement evidence-based strategies aiming at improving birth outcomes, reducing infant mortality, and improving the overall health of children ages birth to 5. Payments to Forsyth County on this contract are not to exceed $206,081. Any questions?
Explain the need for, I'm just kind of curious why Guilford doesn't have a program and we have a program, because it seems like it is the kind of funding source similar. So I'm just trying to understand the advantage of the coordination.
So Guilford County had this program 2 years ago, and their scores improved. So they were no longer eligible to reapply for this. And so our infant mortalities were in the range for us to apply. And so what we did, Guilford County reached out to us and said that we can apply Forsyth County can apply. And so the state said, if we apply, if we partner with Guilford County, that we both can apply. So what happened, they are able to continue the program for another 2 years. And now that we are agency partner, we're able to now implement the program and be successful, hopefully be successful like them and reduce our infant mortality rates. Because they've been very successful.
Good. Other questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Sharita. Agenda item number 19 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Proprio for telephonic, written, and virtual interpretation services. Our HHS Evaluation and Planning Manager, Naya Payne, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This contract will be executed by Health and Human Services on behalf of Behavioral Health Services, Bridges to Hope Family Justice Center, Public Health, Social Services, and Human Resources. The FY agreement with the vendor Proprio covers telephonic, virtual, and American Sign Language provided by qualified multilingual interpreters. There is no minimum usage requirement. Services will be available 24/7, 365 days a year. This agreement is not to exceed $66,000. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 20 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between Forsyth County and the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Social Services, specifying the mandated performance requirements and administrative responsibilities with regard to all social service programs other than medical assistance. Our Deputy Manager, Denise Price, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is historically an annually required agreement between us and the Department of Health and Human Services. This particular year, they have extended that to a 2-year period. It essentially gives them authority to not pay us for areas where we fail to perform. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Denise? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 21 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Board of Education for the provision of school resource officer deputy services. Joshua Foster from our Sheriff's Office will brief this item.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. This is a resolution that ratifies and authorizes execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County on behalf of the Sheriff's Office and the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Board of Education for the School Resource Officer Deputy Services for fiscal year 24-25. Under this agreement, the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Schools will cover 100% of the estimated direct costs for 39 SRO positions. Following the same methodology used in years past, expenditures covered include 100% of estimated salaries, benefits, any of the anticipated performance increases, direct operating expenses, including vehicle operating expenses, body-worn cameras, uniforms, standard issue equipment, training, conferences, so forth, so on. They will continue to use the older vehicles that have been taken out of the frontline service. Therefore, there will be no vehicle replacement cost. Overhead will also not be charged, and the anticipated annual cost for this will be $4,732,610. The Board of Education approved this on June the 25th of this year. I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? I have maybe one. In terms of supervisory positions, I'm just trying to do some arithmetic in my head about, is your formula for staffing different? Or let me ask it differently. Is there any school that has 2 resource officers?
Well, we have what we call rovers. We have 6 rovers. So yes, there are times when we are fully staffed, say there's no one on vacation called out sick, where we'll have an additional personnel where they can go to a school that we may need them at. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Can I ask a question? I know the General Assembly approved the Sheriff's Department being able to serve private schools, although the private schools will pay for the SROs. Has any private school here utilized that?
No, we don't have any SROs working in any of our private schools. We have some working what we call an extra duty event, where they've contracted with us for them to provide services during say, their day off. Summit would be one example at the Summit School. We have an extra duty event at the Summit School, but it is not under contract.
But Summit School's paying all that, correct?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, could you kind of keep us informed on that to see, since that law's gone into effect, to see if other private schools choose to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Agenda item number 22 is a resolution awarding a contract to Capital Marketing Solutions, LLC, to provide ballot printing and packaging services. Our Elections Director, Tim Suji, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd like to present to you a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the Board of Elections and Capital Marketing Solutions for ballot printing and packaging services. This is for our upcoming November 5th, 2024 general election. In accordance with General Statute 163, 165, Capital Marketing Solutions is one of 6 companies certified by the State Board of Elections as an approved ballot printing vendor and has provided ballot printing and packaging services to the Forsyth County Board of Elections for the past 8 years. In comparing the pricing information for the 4 companies that did submit bids, Capital Marketing Solutions did provide the lowest bid at $4.08 per unit, followed by Phoenix Printing at $4.13 per unit, then Printellect at $4.15 per unit, and Taylor Printing at $14.48 per unit. Fort Orange Press and another printer were the other 2 certified vendors, but they did not submit any pricing for service. Besides the pricing, one other advantage to Capital Marketing Solutions is that they are based out of Gardner, North Carolina, and they are intentional about only working with counties along the I-40, I-85 corridor to ensure expedited delivery with their trucks rather than rely on delivery companies. This ensures quality and service, but more importantly, the proper chain of custody of our ballots. So based on the evaluation and the pricing of the respective companies, it is the recommendation of the Forsyth County Board of Elections that a contract be awarded to Capital Marketing Solutions. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Questions for Tim?
I do have, Mr. Chair. How does this interlock or interplay with the approval that the board provided in the past year for new printers for the ballots?
Yes, so this contract would include the purchase of blank ballot stock that we would be using for those ballot on demand printers during early voting.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 23 is a resolution approving purchase of EZIO intraosseous vascular access devices from Teleflex LLC by Forsyth County Emergency Services. I practiced that one. Our Emergency Services Director, Joey Hundley, will brief this item.
I am extremely impressed that you were able to get that out. Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thanks for having me. This agenda item is a request to purchase, as the County Manager indicated, intraosseous vascular access needles to treat our patients. It is a sole source contract from Teleflex LLC, and the total over the course of the year, the contract should not exceed $68,835. These needles specifically, Commissioner Wisenhunt may remember last year when I brought my bone drill sample up here. This is the bone drill needle. And so I didn't figure out it would be as graphic this year for you. Any questions?
No.
Any questions? Thank you, and thanks for not bringing your
Thank you very much.
visual aid.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Agenda item number 24 is a resolution authorizing execution of an amendment to an agreement with Schindler Elevator Corporation for elevator and escalator maintenance services. Mike Shore from our General Services Office will brief this item.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you is an amendment to our current service contract with Schindler Elevator. The amendment will add 11 elevators and 2 escalators for the new courthouse, starting at the end of the warranty period, which is this month, and will continue to the end of FY25. The current amount for FY25 is $103,632, which includes 37 elevators, 2 escalators, 2 dumbwaiters, and the proposed increase for the courthouse is $49,000 $423 for a new total of $153,055 with a new 3-year total that will not exceed $348,506. This amount will include preventive maintenance on the 11 machines and other service calls that are not PM related. The quote that was provided by Schindler is in line with like elevators that we already have at our municipal parking deck. And the numbers that we had for the parking deck in FY23 was $3,312 annually for each elevator, and the new courthouse is $3,715 per elevator annually. The parking deck numbers were also checked against that of the FY23 bidders that we had for that, and those numbers were less than the bidders that we had in FY23 as well. The end of FY25 will complete our 3-year agreement with Schindler and will be rebid starting in FY26. And we also put in the budget for FY25 to include this with our budget request, and we actually came in a little bit lower than what we were expecting. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Mike? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Agenda item number 25 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Textron EasyGo LLC and a lease agreement with PNC Bank National Association for lease of golf carts. Our Constantine Stamati from Parks and Rec will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The item for your consideration today is a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with Textron EasyGo and a lease agreement with PNC Bank for lease of electric golf carts at Tanglewood Golf. In terms of process, we issued a request for proposal directly to 16 businesses in addition to general solicitation by City County Purchasing. As a result of the action, we received 3 bids that were opened by City County Purchasing on Friday, June 21st, 2024. Following an internal evaluation and discussion, Textron EasyGo was selected as the most responsive and responsible firm, providing the lowest cost for the required services. The contract not to exceed amount is $610,585.20, and the agreement is for 60 months or 5 years with the start date on October 1st, 2024. The net change in cost from previous lease represents an approximate increase of $58,000 annually. We have already reflected this additional cost in our adopted budget for FY25. To offset the variance, a fee increase as it applies to golf services that we have at Tanglewood was put into effect as of July 1st, which we estimate will generate sufficient revenue to offset the additional cost. And with this, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Did the number of golf carts leased change from the past to now?
No, sir, the number is the same. The only thing that changed was the previous lease was gas-based. The new lease is electric-based, but even so, the costs of the actual, had it been even gas, the cost would have been insignificant anyway.
Gotcha. All right, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 26 is a resolution selecting and authorizing execution of a contract with Kleinfelder, Inc. to provide construction materials testing and special inspection services for the 4001 North Liberty Street EDA grant project. James Anderson from General Services will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you selects and authorizes a contract with Kleinfelder to provide construction materials testing and special inspection services for the 4001 North Liberty Street EDA grant project. Kleinfelder was selected by an RFQ process advertised by City County Purchasing, with responses being received from SNME, Kleinfelder, GeoHydro Engineers, Summit Engineering, and ECS. A selection committee comprised of General Services staff identified Kleinfelder as the most qualified firm for this project, and staff have negotiated a not-to-exceed fee of $95,000 for construction materials testing and special inspections, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for James? Thank you.
Okay. The next items are all property matters. Agenda item number...
Sorry.
County Manager Robinson, I wanted to have a few words. Chair Martin, before we move to the next item of property matters as relates to our contract, and I appreciate you all allowing me to just briefly reiterate as it relates to our county contract, just my concern as it was last week with one of the contracts with MWBE and A2B, historically utilized business concerns. And I do want to reiterate for the record that, you know, our county be more intentional and more inclusive of our community as it relates to the awarding of our contracts. I know that I can't see all of the commissioners are there, but I'll assume Commissioner McDaniel is there, and I know that she is very intentional about asking at times, is this an MWBE business? And I fully support that, and I am just as interested also about our MWBE and A2B utilization. And I would say, just for the good of the whole as a team, that this is not a District 8 issue. I think that this is a Forsyth County issue, and I, you know, look forward to definitely getting the input of the other commissioners around this issue. I will say that I reached out to the state for the Office of Historically Underutilized Business to share my concerns around our interpretation of good faith and how we can be more proactive, progressive with this law that seems to be a little ambiguous, if you ask me. So I look forward to getting more insight from the state. But, you know, again, I also will say that if you look at a national lens around MWBE and HUB, that there is a report that I would love to send to the commissioners and definitely make available to staff. It's a 2023 Minority Business Economic Impact Report, and there is a national movement to try to move in a direction where obviously the most marginalized businesses by way of ethnic group, by way of women, et cetera, that there is a march to meeting a $1 trillion goal to make sure that these businesses are supported towards a goal of reaching at least $1 trillion. I think that's very progressive. I think that, you know, nationally we would all support making sure that as this country is a very diverse place, that how we spend dollars and how we initiate contracts is truly representative of that. I think we cannot continue to utilize a very conservative model of how we interpret the law, because I think it's going to continue to create a small use of what we intend to promote minority businesses with different ethnic groups and women, obviously. So I wanted to put this back on the attention of the commissioners on behalf of the citizens that I serve and we all serve. I will say lastly, as I was leaving the county building, a constituent came up to me and thanked us for entertaining the conversation in a serious way, because as a minority-owned business, just really felt like there hasn't been a clear path to doing business with, no matter if it's the county, the city, the school district. So I hope that the commissioners and our staff will be able to assist in this manner. Thank you.
Any other questions for James?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next agenda items are all property matters. Agenda item number 27 is a resolution authorizing execution of a lease agreement between Forsyth County and the state of North Carolina on behalf of its Department of Public Safety for lease of county-owned property located at 5580 Sturmer Park Circle. Kirby Robinson, our Deputy General Services Director, will brief this item.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. I appreciate the opportunity to bring these items before you today. As background on the first lease item, in July of 2015, operation of the old Youth Detention Center out on Sturmer Park Circle was transitioned to the state of North Carolina's Department of Public Safety. See kind of an image of that facility over to the right. And the board at that time then leased the facility to the state and has approved several leases since that time. The facility is used as a crisis and assessment center for ages 10 through 17, according to those folks' website, and is operated by the Methodist Home for Children in partnership with the Department of Public Safety. So the state's existing lease for that facility expired June 30, and they do desire to renew or execute a new lease for the property. For your consideration, the premises is 3.5 acres. That's a portion of the property there on Sturmer Park Circle and University. The use is specified in the lease is for providing treatment and administration of programs regarding public safety and youth crisis control services. It's proposed as a 3-year term that's consistent with the past leases, so that would put it expiring June 30 of 27. We proposed a $1 a year lease. That's a rate that previous boards have approved for that property, sort of in recognition of the services they're providing. That said, we do bill back grounds maintenance services at $39 an hour, so our guys are out there providing that for the state. And while technically the county does have responsibility for maintaining the property, we've asked the state in the lease, and they've agreed to this, of course, to provide maintenance up to $25,000 a year. And essentially, the intent of that is that if a light goes out, toilet breaks, something like that, they're out there fixing that. We're not sending county mechanics out to do that. So while it is a $1 a year lease, there is some responsibility there on the part of the state. I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
Any questions for Kirby?
Agenda item number 28 is a resolution authorizing execution of a lease agreement between Forsyth County and the state of North Carolina on behalf of the Department of Public Safety for lease of county-owned property located at 301 North Church Street.
Yes, ma'am. So Commissioners, in 2017, the board authorized construction of an office suite, and that's on the 3rd floor of the Public Safety Center, and that's for use by the state's Department of Public Safety again. The suite is occupied by the management staff of the local probation and parole district. So as a little background on that, while the county, as the board knows, is statutorily required to provide office space for probation and parole, it is not required to provide office space for their management staff. So that means this can be a revenue lease for your consideration. On the right side of the screen is a little bit of it's a floor plan of sort of what that suite looks like. I thought about getting in and taking some pictures, and I figured they wouldn't appreciate that. So I put the floor plan up for you. It's got a couple of different offices, storage space, and meeting rooms. It's 1,300 square feet. It's proposed as a 3-year term, and again, that would expire June 30 of 27. The rental here is $25,000 a year, or $19 a square foot. And that's really kind of an interesting rental rate. It does two things. It reimburses the county for its operating expenses for the space. It's a full-service gross lease, so we're providing all services to it. But then it also pays the county back for its construction costs of the space. So that number looks really big when you sort of consider what we've leased or what the board has authorized leases to for public entities in the past. But it's because about half of it goes to our cost and about half of it goes to paying down the construction cost of the space. So again, full service gross lease, and the tenant responsibilities really are nothing in that. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
Any questions for Kirby? That looks like a reasonable arrangement.
Yes, sir.
Agenda item number 29 is a resolution authorizing execution of a lease agreement between Forsyth County and the City of Winston-Salem for the lease of space in a county-owned building located at 741 Highland Avenue.
Thank you. Commissioners, the City of Winston-Salem's housing program staff has requested a lease of 550 square feet. That would be located on the first floor of the Department of Social Services facility. That group's long-term plan is, as I understand it, is to relocate to a local nonprofit. But the construction of that space is not yet finished. So this is really sort of a temporary stopgap solution for them. The group's mission, though, does align really well with what you would expect to sort of see at DSS, and that's that they're there to assist families who are experiencing homelessness or household instability with case management and resources. So the proposed lease for your consideration is 550 square feet. That's roughly 4 workstations, again, of just office space. The term is would expire July 31st of 2025. I'll say that both groups have a 30-day ability to terminate that lease, and that's essentially there so if their space is ready sooner, they will be able to then exit the lease. DSS just really kind of originated out of their suggestions. They're comfortable with that use of space. The rental proposed for your consideration is $256 a month, or $5.60 a square foot. The way we got to that rate is by using what the board approved in the partners model. So if you'll recall, several months ago, we had to move partners out of the Highland Avenue Center temporary arrangement at DSS, and we carried over their $5.60 a square foot rate. It basically reimburses us for our costs for that space. So landlord responsibilities there are a full service gross lease, but we're not really doing a whole lot there outside of just keeping it up and emptying the trash. And the tenant responsibilities there are nothing outside of course, paying that cost. And I'll say the City of Winston-Salem, their housing programs manager is here with us today, Ms. Floyd. If you have any questions on their program, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer that. I'm here if you have any questions on the lease.
Any questions for Kirby?
I would like her to talk about the program in the city. Thank you.
And just a little context, this is the program that United Way ran. It's the Continuum of Care, but they are no longer doing that as of June 30th, and she can talk about that.
Good afternoon, Sharika Floyd, Housing Programs Manager for the City of Winston-Salem. Thank you guys for having me. Effective September 1st, the City of Winston-Salem, along with partners such as Family Services, Bethesda Center for the Homeless, and City with Dwellings, will take on the Coordinated Entry System. The Coordinated Entry System is required for any homeless service continuum of care, which we are NC 500, meaning we serve Winston-Salem and the entire Forsyth County for homeless services. With United Way stepping down effective September 1st, we are required to have basically a triage center for anybody that's experiencing homelessness. In the recreation of the program, we have decided to split services for triage for individuals and families with City with Dwellings, which is an organization that specializes in unsheltered and chronically homelessness. They're focusing on singles, and then Bethesda Center and Family Services taking more of a leeway on families and domestic violence victims. With that, that created also with Dream Center, which is where we will be moving into once that construction is complete at the new Rominger Furniture Building. With them, we will be doing triage, so basic needs services, connecting individuals to emergency shelter, other resources such as life skills, employment, to help them in their housing instability. I can answer any other questions you may have.
No, this was very helpful. I wanted to know about that Dream Center and what they were going to do. But it's good to know also that the coalition of the cooperative partners is working for the homeless. So thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a related question? Has United Way completely shut down its homelessness program?
They will no longer be offering any direct services.
Okay. What will they be doing?
So they will still act as a fiscal sponsor. So that means that we do have rapid rehousing programs, which is programs that offer rental assistance. So they will continue to cut the checks for those programs and do the inspections for the housing units before anyone moves in.
So is the City of Winston-Salem taking all of that work in-house?
So we have partnered with additional partners like Family Services, Bethesda Center, and we've taken, I guess you can say, the forefront of rebuilding the system and getting the system back up and running until partners are able to fully take on those responsibilities.
All right, thank you. Where is the commission now? Is it still in operation?
The continuum of care?
No, the Commission on Homelessness.
The Commission on Homelessness is still up and running, and they meet in person again August 13th.
Okay. Will they be meeting at city facilities, or do they have another?
We're meeting at the library.
Okay, thank you.
Public library. And then the in-person meetings are quarterly, but the other meetings are virtual online every other month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Agenda item number 30 is a resolution declaring certain county-owned personal property surplus and authorizing its disposition by public electronic auction utilizing Liquidity Services operations.
All right. Commissioners, it is the responsibility of General Services to ensure the surplus property here in the county is disposed of lawfully and in a way that maximizes that property's value. So in the past, the county has sold property a couple of different ways. Our rolling stock is through an on-site auction service, and the board has authorized personal property to be sold using the public electronic auction site GovDeals. And we typically aim to have a sale about once a quarter. And I always try to find fun and interesting GovDeals items to show you in this sale. So if you're interested in a clawfoot tub or a picnic table, we certainly have that. And I can't scroll. There we go. So before General Services brings surplus to the board, we do attempt to reuse it and repurpose it throughout the organization if it's possible. When there's no interest in that item, or it's not, or it is unusable or not reusable, we do place it on the county surplus list and attempt to sell it at auction. If authorized, the proposed auction here would have a viewing period from August 19th to August 30th, and the auction would be live on the GovDeals site August 26th through September 9th. And if folks are interested, they can come out and see these items and call us with questions at 703-2232. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
Questions? Thank you.
Agenda item number 31 is just refund by the tax assessor collector in the amount of $14,108.94. 32 and 33 are human resources reports for the month of May and June. And we do have one added item, and apologies in advance or maybe behind. Our budget analyst, senior budget analyst Kim Bussey will brief this item. Part A is an amendment to the 2021 PAYGO Capital Projects Ordinance to transfer $2.4 million to the 2016 Parks Facility Capital Projects Ordinance for the Forsyth County Multi-Use Agricultural Event Center. In B is an amendment to the 2016 Parks Facilities Capital Projects Ordinance to appropriate $5 million from the state of North Carolina and accept the transfer from the 2021 PAYGO Capital Projects Ordinance for the Forsyth County Multi-Use Event Center.
Hello again, Commissioners. Thank you for your consideration in this item. As a summary to all of that, this is basically amendments to the 2021 PAYGO CPO and the 2016 Parks Facilities CPO, really to consolidate and organize some already appropriated funds, PAYGO funds, and to appropriate a $5 million grant that was received from this, or appropriation from the state for the multi-use agricultural event center. So what this item does is, again, it transfers $2.4 million in funding from the 21 PAYGO CPO that was earmarked for the cooperative extension move over to the facility to the 2016 Parks Facilities CPO, and it appropriates, again, the $5 million received from the state of North Carolina in last year's budget for the multi-use agricultural event center. So for this project as a total budget, we started off with $4.5 million in the 2016 Parks Facilities bond, and we have a $2.4 million was included in the 21 PAYGO. $5 million was included in the 22 PAYGO, and this $5 million in state appropriation. And we included $3.1 million in the 2023 PAYGO for a total project budget of $20 million. Just for your information, to date, we have spent a little over $5.6 million on this project and have a balance of about $14.8 million remaining on this project after this appropriation and transfer. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this consolidation and appropriation.
Questions?
No questions. I just say thank you to the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all I have, Mr. Chairman, except our closed session motions.
Would you make that?
Okay, I need to ask the board to consider a motion to go into closed session to discuss one matter relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by the public body in negotiations pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A4, and one matter to establish or to instruct the public body staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the public body in negotiating the price and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A5, and two matters to consider: the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of employment, or conditions of initial employment of an individual public officer or employee or prospective public officer or an employee pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A6. And since there is no other business to come before the board at this meeting, following the closed session, the meeting will be adjourned.
So moved. Is there a second? Second, Vice Chair Wizenhut. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.